Hey there, Hofstra fans, and welcome inside the WB Mason Coaches Report on GilHofstra.com. I'm Julian Coltree, joined by the head coach of the Hofstra Pride baseball team, John Russo. Coach, how's it going today?
Good, Julian. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's discuss the series that you had this weekend, CAA play against James Madison, and we'll kind of dive into your matchup this weekend with UNCW and your midweek game. But first, take the opener against JMU, lose the next two games. What were your thoughts on how the weekend went?
You know, it's really tough not to take 2 or 3 at home. I think we're such a good home team, and to win the opener and then not to win one of the two is really tough. They had a really good pitcher on the mound on Saturday, so we knew going in that would be a tough game to win. But a tie-breaking game on your field on Sunday is I think it's a game you got to walk away with a win. It's a really tough loss. So I don't know. It's tough losses we've had this year, at least for me.
Let's talk about the game that you guys won. You got a little offensive output there, some strong pitching. What you like in that opening victory?
I think everything got set on the mound by Kaz. Nick Kozlowski really threw really well, and he didn't have much stuff, but he just battled and was really tough. And I think he threw 96 fastballs out of like 120 pitches, and but he held down a really good offensive James Madison team, and I think we got to see that the next 2 days of how much his performance was good. And then, I thought Eric Ferguson came up with such a big, 3-run homer and took a big monkey off our back to get us on the board, and a lot of confidence to hold the lead the rest of that game. And I thought Brett Schreiber was really good in his 2 innings of relief. So it's about as good a performance as we can have on Friday.
Game 2, David Jesh gets the start for you guys, and he lasts just about halfway through the game, though he gives up a couple of runs in that 3rd inning. What you see from him, and do you think that he's at the point where you want him to be this season, or what do you want to see more from him?
It's really tough on him is, he hadn't had a start in almost 3 weeks, and he went 5 innings, but it was like 95 pitches, and so I didn't really want him to go much more. He hadn't thrown that much in 3 weeks, but 3 runs. He had a really tough inning, but he's really close to getting out of that inning with 2 runs. They called a balk, which I didn't really like with the bases loaded, and I thought his performance was good enough to win. But their guy on the mound, Huffman, was really tough. He was 88 to 93 in and out, and senior. Guys, who's their best guy? He is what he is, and we ended up getting him for 3 late, which if we could have held him there, but we gave up, I think it was 5 runs the last 3 innings, and you can't do that late in games. You'll lose games that way.
And the 3rd game, Graham Tevitt finally getting that start on the weekend. He obviously worked his way up through a couple of midweek games for you guys, and for him, he didn't probably get the start that you would have wanted, just lasting just around 3 innings or so. He got hit hard for a couple of runs, but did you like what you saw? Are there encouraging signs for him, and do you think he'll be able to get another weekend start sometime soon?
Well, the problem with Graham happened is he hurt his left arm a little bit, and so that made it so he couldn't really throw midweek. So you're talking almost 2 weeks since he's even been on the mound, and it's just really hard. And he couldn't find his breaking ball, and yesterday was such a make or break game. You couldn't really let him out there to keep working on it, and I think he had really tough luck with the fly ball being dropped, and the 1 inning caused 2 more extra runs. So overall, his performance wouldn't have been all that bad. We had Brett Schreiber right there. I knew we had Dorico right there. So Brett came in and logged some good innings, and I thought David logged some good innings.
Now, as far as, I guess, an overall impression, you got a CAA contest this past weekend. You mentioned it. You would have liked to have won 2 of 3, but you ultimately lose 2 of 3. What are your overall impressions in terms of the positives as well as some of the negatives?
I think the positives is our pitching staff, held a really good offensive club down. I mean, in my previous 6 games against James Madison, the lowest run total my team had held until it was 12 runs. So I think it was like 12, 14, 2 16s, and 18, and a 20, and, a 1-5 record against them. And, I know we didn't come out of the weekend with the big runs, but we did hold them, to single digits the whole weekend. I think it was 2, 4 and 5 runs earned, which is really good. And, those are type of games we usually, win when we get those type of pitching performances. And, it's obvious, I think, to almost everybody, our offense is struggling some right now. And, we've got to figure out some way this week to get the offense going. And to be honest, it's not going to be against any easier opponent in Wilmington and 2 guys that are as good as pitchers in the whole league.
Now, one of the big things that obviously every team wants is good defense. And that third game, you guys made a couple of errors. How tough is it on a pitching staff when your guys in the field can't back them up and they get those extra outs in the inning that just kind of rack up?
That was a little bit on me. I had guys playing a little bit out of position to try to get the offense going, and I'm as much to blame for anybody as that did it, because you try to get greedy and try to get offense, and you sneak in a guy maybe defensively that shouldn't be there, but you're hoping for more offense, and then in turn, you give up a couple of defensive runs, so it worked out poorly, and that's a decision that lies on me, and I hate it, and really went to do it, but the pitchers really rebounded well, I thought. I mean, Schreiber was in some trouble after the 2 runs got ended up. He got out of it. David, had an error give up. He could have given up more runs. And, I think that's where we've moved on to, at least on the pitching staff side, is, one error isn't causing huge problems.
Yep.
They get out of it, and they're doing well.
Now let's move on to this midweek game, Farmingdale State. What do you think you'll see from them, and how will that prepare you for the weekend series?
They're one of the best Division III programs in the country, and definitely in the state. They're in the regionals every year, been in the World Series, and Keith Osick, their head coach, is a great coach, a great guy. Listen, they gave us a really good game last year, so underestimating them isn't even in question, and especially we really need to try to figure out how to get the offense swinging the bat some. I think we got to get Alec Eisenberg will probably start that game. I think it'd be good for him to log 4 or 5 innings, to get some innings underneath his belt, and got to get a couple other guys in there. We'll get to see Cody Normand again on Wednesday, and I think he could really help out the bullpen, and if he can get going, so it's another outing for him. And I think anytime you play at home, you've got to try to seize the opportunity and play better. And listen, we need to play better for sure if you're going to go down and try to take any games from Wilmington.
Well, let's move on to that series against Wilmington. 3-game set this weekend. One of the teams that, of course, last season were picked to finish top in the conference. They always seem to be one of the top 3 teams in the CAA. What do you expect from them, and what's the biggest thing that you look for every time that you go against the Seahawks?
2 years ago we went down there and we had a great club and really struggled to just get one game, and then last year we had to sweep, and we were within 90 feet of sweeping them, and they're as tough as opponents we play all year. And the thing that starts with them is Matt Batts on Friday night was the conference pitcher of the year. On Friday this week he threw a 2-hitter against William Mary, 12 strikeouts, no walks, 96 pitches. And you say, oh, that's not too bad. Well, William Mary is the top offensive club in the country right now, so that doesn't bode too well. We're not the top offensive club in the country. And then they got a kid, Jordan Ramsey, who's been a 2-year starter. He was second-team All-CAA last year, a 6'5" right-hander that's 88 to 93s, the top projected draft pick in our whole conference. And they got a kid, they got hitting DH for them, first base, and they say he's the best hitter in the league right now going, and they're going to be a really tough opponent. It's where the CAA championships are held. They're really good on their home field. Hofstra baseball has a lot to overcome this week, and really going to have to battle to get one, and going to have to really play great to get 2.
Well, what do you think that key is going to be to get a great series out of your guys?
Got to have a good performances on the mound from Kaz and Jesh, DeRico, Tebbett, Schreiber, continue with those guys throwing well, but we've got to figure out how to get some guys going offensively. I think like Ford, Jackson, Ferguson, they're getting their hits, but we're not going like we usually get going. And I've really been happy. Dave Lederman and T.J. Ersham, have been not guys that have been supposed to be our offense threats, and they are our offense right now, which is really good. If we get other guys going, we got to get Brian McDonald going again. If you would have told me I wouldn't have started him in Sunday's game, I would have said you were crazy, but he just started to really struggle this week, and so this week we got to get Brian back going because he's a huge part of our offense. So we're gonna have to figure a way to go down there and score some runs. We're definitely gonna have to play better defense. I think you take over another opponent's field by playing great defense, and might get Brad Witowski back this week. I think that'll help the defense some. So we'll see how that goes. But we did lose Rouleau this week, or just today actually, for the year, so we won't have Dalton back at all this year, so have to figure out how to move forward without knowing we're not going to have him back.
Coach, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
Remember, Hofstra fans, you can tune into the WB Mason Coaches Report each and every week right here on GoHofstra.com.